All right. I will go ahead and make this full screen. Okay. So my name is Ashlee Moore. I'm going to be talking about the first principle of accessibility, which is structured content. And I'm also going to give a little bit of a how-to demonstration in both Google Docs and in Word. So I'm also one of the accessibility fellows this semester. So we have quite a few accessibility workshops going on today if you're interested in any of these principles we talk about. So the agenda for today is I'm just going to talk about the 5 principles of accessibility and then move into structured content, why it's so important. I also have an example that should help kind of illuminate what I mean by structured content. And then we'll move into specifically how to structure your content in both Google Docs and in Word. So no matter which you use, you can have like a step-by-step guide to do that. So when we talk about digital accessibility, these 5 types of, or these 5 principles usually pop up. I think we have a session for each of these today, or at least somewhere around these few days. So the first is identifying content types, and that's really what I'm going to talk about today. Structuring your content to make it more accessible for people who are using screen readers, but also just for everyone else that isn't using screen readers as well. Other things that are going to be talked about later today would be providing text equivalents, using color, providing descriptive hyperlinks, and using clear language. So first, I want to talk about the importance of identifying content types. So first of all, this first item is really for everyone. So if you identify and structure your content, it really organizes your content and it presents your information in a clear and consistent manner. It allows you to find information easily at a glance. So just by scanning a document, you can see what's important, certain headers or lists, things like that. It also provides some cues to people that have learning disabilities. It can make it easier for them to understand the content. And that is for everyone that's not using a screen reader. In addition, organizing your content type in a digitally accessible manner can also alert assistive technology like screen readers so that not only, so everyone can actually kind of quote unquote skim through the document, even if you're not using your eyes, even if you're using a screen reader. So I will start with just a brief example that's sort of meant to help you understand what I mean by structured content. So this is a recipe for gluten-free peanut butter cookies. Um, this recipe would be doable if you saw it this way, but it is certainly not in the most coherent format. Like most people online would call this a wall of text. This is kind of what you tell your students not to do when they're giving a PowerPoint presentation. There's no breaks, there's no headers, it's just all the text, all put into one quote unquote wall or block. And so, like I said, you could probably make these cookies. They would turn out just fine, but it's not the easiest way to present it. So there's a couple of things you could do to make this easier to view. So picking out your content types and structuring it in a way that's easier. The first is that you could just put in some breaks or some line breaks. So you could just press enter at the end of the important content, and you can already tell this makes it much easier to identify what you're looking at. So you have the name of the recipe, a little bit about it, the ingredients, and the directions. But you could go even further. You could say bold the headings here. So you would have a bold title, a bold ingredient section, a bold directions section. You could also take the items under ingredients and direction and structure those even more. So you could create a bulleted list and a numbered list. And I would imagine if you saw this versus that first sort of wall of text example, this is going to be much more easy to sort of grasp what you're looking at, and especially when you are making this recipe, where you need to go to find certain things. So what's important is that even though I've bolded the information here and put in line breaks, that is great for people that are not using assistive technology like screen readers. But if you were using a screen reader to view this right now, it would essentially, the screen reader would still interpret it as that wall of text that I had at the first example. it would start at the beginning and it would read through it sentence by sentence and it wouldn't stop, and there would be no breaks essentially. So it's really important that even though most of us are used to making our content look like this, we can go one step further and sort of tag these as headings or tag them as lists. And that will make the screen readers actually able to structure their content for the people that are using the screen reader much easier, and you can skim through it. So I'm going to give some examples in Word and Google Docs, but before I do, there's just a few like regular content type formatting tips here. So the first is to use basic clean fonts. So there's 4 fonts listed here that are generally seen as like the easiest to read. The first 3 are what we would call the sans serif type, and then Georgia is a serif font. Sans serif are generally considered the most accessible, especially in digital environments. But these are 4 good fonts to use. Black text on a white background is always the easiest to read. Second best would be light text on a dark background. Paragraph or normal text should always be 12 point or larger. Headings a little bit larger than that. And then the main thing we're going to talk about today is these headings. So you should use headings that are actually tagged as headings so that screen readers can use those. And you can use them in kind of like a hierarchical manner. So like a first heading would be the top level. And then if you have subheadings below that, you would use heading 2, etc. There's also tags that you can tag something for a title. Titles really should only be used for things like title pages. So if you're writing a book or something with that has a title and then a lot of text, you can use a title for that. White space is always necessary. So instead of having those, blocks of text, instead break it up, sort of like it is on this slide. And then when you're using Word, you can use these built-in themes, format, and styles, which I'm going to show you. Or if you're using Google Docs, you can use what's called paragraph styles. And both of these are going to help you both format the content and tag it so that a screen reader will also have that same formatting information that it can use when presenting the information to someone who's using the screen reader. So we're going to walk through an example of this recipe in both Google Docs and Word. So you'll notice that here on the slides, and while I'm thinking about it, let me go ahead and I'm going to share these slides, and I'm also going to share a link to a practice Google Doc. So on the slides, I actually have the steps on slides 12 and 13 listed for how to do this in a Google Doc, how to do this in a Word doc, but I'm actually just going to go ahead and show you, but you can always come back to these slides if you need the information step by step. So I'm going to start by going to a Google Doc. So the link I shared will allow you to actually just make a copy of the Google Doc in your own folder. And this is what it should look like. If you want to practice this in Word, you can also take this Google Doc text and just copy and paste it into a Word doc on your computer if you want to follow along. So this is our peanut butter cookie recipe. I have already gone ahead and entered the line breaks, so it is a little bit easier to comprehend what we're looking at. But what we want to do here is make it easier and more accessible. So in Google Docs, the main way that you create headings is, well, there's 2 ways you can find it, but generally the easiest is this first bar that's showed with all your different options, where it says normal text right next to your font type. If you click the little down arrow next to that, what you'll see is a whole bunch of different tags that you can put on text. You can tag it as the title of the document. Like I said, that's usually only going to be if you're writing a book or something that has a title and then a long amount of content. Subtitles, heading 1, 2, 3. If you need more than 3 headings, or if you just need another way to see this, you can go to format and then paragraph styles. And that's going to give you the same information. It's just going to have more headings, more heading options. So I usually don't ever use more than heading 3, even I usually only use heading 1 and heading 2. So this is plenty for me. So what I would do is, let's say we want to turn this gluten-free peanut butter cookies, the name of the recipe, into a heading 1. You would highlight it and then go to where it says normal text and change that and click on heading 1. You can see that makes it much larger. I don't believe it bolds it, so it's 20-point font. It just basically changes the font size. You could also change, say, ingredients. Let's say we want to change ingredients and directions. Instead of header 1, we want to make them a little smaller and change them into header 2. So we can update that to header 2 and then do the same for directions, update that to header 2. So now we've got multiple different types of headings. And you'll notice in Google Docs, one thing that I really love about Google Docs is that when you tag it as headings, you can essentially kind of see what a screen reader sees as well. If you have this tab open on the left, it allows you to navigate by using your headers, by clicking on it, and it will take you right to that point in the document, which is really useful to make sure that you have everything structured correctly. So I have a example here of one of my schedules. This is a schedule for this semester. I have a class that meets 4 times a week. And so it's very, like, it's a lot for students to wrap their heads around in terms of what's due every day. What are we doing each day? What do I need to read before class? So I have this broken up into weeks and then each day in the week. And so once I have this whole schedule made, we have this tab on the left where students can just kind of scroll down and say, okay, we're in week 9 and it's Monday. What are we doing? What do I need to do before class? And click on that, and it's going to take them right to that point in the document. That makes it easy for everyone who's accessing this document, but it also makes it very easy for someone in a screen reader. They can navigate and say, okay, which of these level 1 headings do you want to go to? I want to go to week 9. And then it would ask, which of these days do you want to navigate to? And it can navigate to Monday without having to read everything we're doing every day in that screen reader. So this is very useful, especially in large documents. So continuing with our peanut butter cookies, we can also update the ingredients and make that a bulleted list. We can make the directions a numbered list. And now we have a much easier to comprehend recipe. So what a couple of things you can do in Google Docs is, say these level 2 headings, for some reason you want them to be different. You want them to be maybe like a dark red. You know, you can really do anything. You could make them, let's make them dark red and underlined. So if that's how I want my level 2 headings to look, what I can do in Google Docs is just keep my cursor in the new level 2 heading. And then I can go to this tab where the headings are, click level 2 heading. And then if I click this button that says update heading 2 to match, what it's going to do is it's going to go through my entire document and it's going to update all of my heading 2s to that exact same format that I've just put in. So I click update heading 2, and now you'll see that my directions heading is also changed to dark red and underlined. So this is very useful if you have a large document and you want to change something, you don't have to go and make all of those changes. Also, if you have a specific style that you really like, you can save these changes and make them essentially your default every time you go into Google Docs. So if I say, let's go ahead and make this bold, we'll also make it dark red just to keep things consistent. And let's say I want to make that into my heading 1. Oh, we want to make that larger. Oops. Okay, this is normal text. All right. So now what we can do is we have our headings the way we want, however you want to structure them. If you scroll down to this options button and click on save as my default styles, what this is going to do is it's going to save these styles. So every time you come back into Google Docs, your heading 1 and your heading 2 are the same that you structured these as. So for example, in my syllabus, I often use these sort of like, I guess, gray highlighted bars to indicate like visually that there's like a major new section. So things like schedule, course description, instructor information. So I have these set up as my standard heading 1 because syllabus and schedules are what I make the most. And so that's always going to be my heading 1, and my heading 2s are simply these bold 12-point font. And so anytime I go in to make a schedule, my Google Docs is already set up and I can just label something a heading 1 and it's going to change it to that. If I want to change this to a heading 2, it's going to change it to that bold text. If I want to change it to a heading 1, it's going to change it to the type that I like. So however you want to structure, you can do that in Google Docs and save it. So we can also move into a Word doc. So I am using Word for Mac, so just know that even though Word on a PC has all the same buttons, sometimes the buttons is in like a slightly different spot, so you might not find it exactly where I'm clicking. But you can do the same thing in Word. So what you can do is find this button that says Styles pane, and it will open up this list on the left that has all sorts of different styles. In fact, many more than Google Docs. So it's a little bit overwhelming, but you can see that it does have a title. It has a heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. So still the same things, just many more options. So let's do the same thing here. We can take our name of our recipe and change that into a heading 1 just by highlighting it and then clicking on heading 1. We can do the same with ingredients, change that to heading 2. And then we can also do the same thing with directions, change that to heading 2. So now that we have our heading 1, heading 2, we can also, if we really wanted to change our styles in Word, we could also do that. So let's say we want to underline our heading 2. So we can just change this to an underline. And then in the same way we did in Google Docs, as long as we keep our cursor there in our heading 2, we can click the little down arrow next to heading 2 and select Update to Match Selection. This is going to update all our heading 2s to be underlined now. So now you'll see directions changes as well. So again, if you have a really long document, makes it a lot easier to not have to go and make all these changes. And then again, if you want to actually keep these and say, I want these to be my styles that I use every time I open Word, you can do that by going to the design menu, and there should be a button that says set as default. And when you click that, that's going to set all of the headings that you've made for this document into the default. When you open up Word, they will all be that way. Now, Word does not have the ability to sort of have that tab on the left that shows you like how a screen reader would navigate it. But one thing that Word does have that's really useful is once you have your headings tagged, you can actually go through this design option, and you can, your document now knows you've got gluten-free peanut butter cookies is our heading 1, ingredients and directions are our heading 2. And if you click on these different styles up here, it's going to change your document automatically because it knows what's normal text, what's a heading 1, and what's a heading 2. So you can have lots of different options for your document, and you can kind of choose the one that you think is best. So, I mean, I think this one looks nice and clean. I might choose this one. And this is not the heading styles that I've chosen. They're not my defaults, but you can make changes really quickly by going through something like this. All right. So back to the PowerPoint slides. The last thing I want to do is just point you to this website, oswego.edu/accessibility. I'm going to open this up quickly. So this is the digital accessibility website. And if you scroll down just a little bit and go over on the right and click on the written and video tutorials, it's going to bring you to a page. And the very first heading is going to say documents. If you ever have questions about making Microsoft Word or Google Docs accessible, if you click the down arrows next to these two, there are videos here that walk you through all of these steps right on the accessibility webpage. In addition, this will be posted on the CELT YouTube. This presentation will be posted on the CELT YouTube channel. And so there's lots of resources you can use in addition to contacting the accessibility fellows if you have questions you want to work through. So that is it for the structured content presentation. We have just a couple minutes, so if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Or if not, happy to let you go on your way. Are there any questions?
Well, great. Thank you, Ashlee.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Everybody.